Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Now, right now we're still sort of in fall mode here at Two Sisters, but the winter season will be here before we know it, and before you get overwhelmed with everything that comes with the holiday season, I thought I would share with you how to make a beautiful evergreen wreath so that when the time comes to switch out your pumpkins for more winter appropriate decor, you'll be ready. If you didn't know, wreath making is a large part of our winter season here at Two Sisters Flower Farm, and I really enjoy working with fresh evergreens during this time of year. I mean, evergreens are beautifully fragrant and you really don't need a lot of them to make a statement. What's more, evergreens are extremely low maintenance. With just a little care, they can easily last into the early days of spring so that your porch can look festive all winter long. Now, I know some of you who are watching this video may be thinking that wreath making is complicated and time consuming, but I promise you, if you just follow along, the process will be way less involved than you think. So if you're ready, let's go. For this project, you're honestly not going to need too much in terms of supplies. You are going to need a wire wreath frame. Now, you can easily find wire wreath frames at your local craft store, or even Amazon has them, and I'll link a few in the description box below. Now, wreath frames come in a variety of sizes. Which size you choose is really a matter of personal preference. Now, understand that because the wire of the frame gets wrapped in fresh evergreens, the overall size of your finished wreath, it will be larger than the measurement of the wire frame itself. Now, it really does depend on how much material that you use to cover your frame, but a wire frame of, let's say, 14 inches, like I'm going to be using today, when covered in evergreens, it will produce a finished wreath measuring usually between 22 and 26 inches, which in my opinion is a great size to fit a standard 36-inch door. Now, in addition to your wreath frame, you're going to need some paddle wire so that you can actually attach your evergreens to the frame. And of course, you'll need greenery. So when it comes to greenery, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. You see, I don't need a lot of bling on my wreaths, but I do love texture, and one of the easiest ways to create truly stunning texture is by using a variety of greenery within your wreath. Now today I have 3 different kinds of pine that I'm going to be working with: cedar, white pine, and some Fraser fir for some added structure. I love all 3 of these varieties of greenery by themselves, but especially when you mix them together, I love how they give sort of an elevated look to an otherwise traditional wreath. Now, for another fun pop of texture, I do have this eucalyptus here that I'm going to add in as well. The fun part of wreath making is that once you understand the process, you can really make a wreath your own by mixing in whatever sort of fun ingredients that you have on hand. Now, all of these ingredients I'm using today, these all hold up really well in the cold, so I feel confident that this wreath will stand the test of time and look great the rest of the season as it hangs on my front door. Now, when it comes to sourcing greenery for your own wreath, you can certainly forage for some fresh greenery if you have evergreens growing on your property. Depending on where you live, you may be able to find some truly unique textures. You can also typically find evergreens like I have here at local florists, or even a garden center may carry these sort of loose evergreens once we get into the winter season. I will add that if you're watching this video in November, then do know that here at Two Sisters, we sell wreath kits as part of our holiday offerings. Our kits, they include everything that you see here, and we do ship them across the US. So if you're looking for a fun holiday activity to do with your girlfriends, with your family, or if you just want a fun night of solo crafting at home, well, be sure to check out the link in the description box, as you'll be able to find more details there. Now, before we get started assembling the wreath, the last thing that you're going to need is a pair of garden snips so that you can cut your evergreens. You don't need anything too fancy. I'm just using an inexpensive pair that I picked up at my local garden center, but you'll likely need something a bit more than just a regular pair of scissors. Also, it's optional, but you may decide that you want some gardening gloves on as we do this project. While the evergreens varieties that I'm working with today are easy to work with, I mean, they're not too pokey, they can sometimes ooze sap from the branches as you cut them. Now, if you don't want to feel that stickiness on your hands, or if your skin is easily irritated, you may want those gloves handy to protect your hands. So now that we have our supplies handy, let's get started. So now that we're ready to wreath, we're going to start by getting our ingredients prepped and ready to attach to our wire wreath frame. I like to work with evergreens that are what I call wreath bundle size. Now what this is pieces of evergreens that are trimmed down to 4 to 6 inches in length. You see, what we're going to be doing as we construct our wreath is we're going to be bundling these smaller pieces together to actually construct your wreath. But for right now, we need the evergreens to be that bundle size. And so step one of this project is to simply trim your ingredients down so that everything is that 4 to 6 inch size that I just mentioned. Now, don't worry if your pieces aren't exactly the same size, or if you have parts of your bough where the branch is exposed. I promise it all gets covered up in the end. Our goal with this step is just to make our evergreens easier to work with. So as you can see, I'm going to take a larger evergreen bough. I'm going to cut it down into that more workable 4 to 6 inch size. Trust me, you can't screw this up, so don't overthink this step. Now I'm going to pile the different varieties that I have into their own piles, and then we're going to be ready to start attaching these pieces to your wreath form. So right now I'm going to go ahead and do this step. If you're working to create your own wreath with me, do this step and then check back with me as we move on to the next step together. Okay, so now that your greenery is prepped and ready, we're going to work on getting attached to your wreath frame. So if you moved your wreath frame or your petal wire out of the way as you were cutting your greenery, be sure to grab those, and I'm going to show you how to get started. So to attach our petal wire to our wire frame, we're just going to unroll our wire so that we have a little tail. You'll notice that your frame, maybe like mine, has some middle bars, so we're going to go under the 2 middle bars and then twist tie the petal wire sort of like you were closing a loaf of bread with a twist tie. You're going to twist it so that it's securely attached to your wreath frame, maybe 5 or 6 times. You'll know that you're ready to wreath if you can pick up your petal wire and your wreath frame comes with it. So once you attach your petal wire to your frame, you're not going to cut it until the very end. So just keep that in mind. It's going to be one continuous length of wire that keeps everything attached and in place. So next we're going to get that first bundle ready so that we can attach it. Now you can bundle your greens however you like. There are no rules. As you can see here, I'm going to take some of that fir that I first cut. I like using this as sort of a base because I feel like it gives it some stability to my wreath. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of cedar and then some pine on top. You only need about 3 or 4 pieces of greenery to create this first bundle. And once you have those elements together, you're going to gather them in your hand. And then I hold them together with my thumb like this. Where your thumb is, that's where you're going to attach it to your frame. So I'm going to take that bundle that I just made, I'm going to lay it down so that where my thumb is, that attachment point is laying directly on top of where my wire is. Now pinch your bundle with one hand and then you're going to take your wire and secure your greens to the wreath frame. So I'm going to go over, under, and then I'm going to pull tightly. Now you don't have to yank your frame, you can be gentle with this part. But be sure that you're securing your greens enough so that they don't fall out once you hold your wreath upright. And we're going to wrap this paddle wire around a few more times, going over and then going under and pulling tightly. I recommend that you wrap your wire 2 or 3 times around your evergreen bundle to ensure that it's really on there. Now, you're more than welcome to do more wraps if you think you need it. You certainly will have enough wire. I think I'm just gonna go stick with 3 go-arounds. Now, this may not look like a wreath yet, but I'm sure you can see where we're going. We're simply going to repeat the same process as we work our way around this wreath form. Now, I'm gonna help you attach your second bundle here in just a second, so don't worry, but I wanna mention a few things that you should keep in mind as you work to construct your wreath. So for starters, for a consistent and uniform wreath, you're going to want to use somewhat uniform bundles. If some of your bundles are overly thick and others are on the skinnier side, you may find that parts of your wreath feel a bit more bare. Having uniform bundles means being mindful of how much evergreens you have available to work with. Now, while there is no magic formula to this wreath making process, I usually like to say that as a general rule, you'll need about 1 bundle per inch of your wreath form. So with this 14-inch wreath form like I have here, we'll need about 14 bundles, give or take, to complete our wreath. So back to our wreath. Let's get that second bundle attached. Now for the second bundle, I'm going to create a similar bundle to what I've already created. I'm going to gather some fir, some cedar, some pine, and some eucalyptus. Just like before, I'm going to gather that in my hand and hold it in place with my thumb about 1 inch or 2 above the bottom of my branches. The goal of my next bundle is to cover the mechanics, the wire and the stems or the branches of the previous bundle that I had just secured to this wreath form. I don't want to place my bundle, directly on top of my previous bundle, but I also don't want to place it so far down that it leaves space in my wreath form. I'm really aiming to have the top third of the bundle that I'm holding. I'm aiming to have that top third cover what I previously attached to my wreath form. And I'm going to angle my bundle slightly as I place it on my form to give some width and substance to my wreath. I'm going to attach this bundle the same way that I attached the previous one. I'm going to go over and under, pull tightly. And I'm going to do this 2 or 3 different times. Can you start to see how this is going to work? Okay, just for good measure, let's attach 1 more bundle, then I'm going to give you some time to work on your wreath, and we'll come back together to make sure you know exactly how to finish your wreath. So like always, I'm going to take some fir, some pine, and then maybe some cedar on top. And this time I'm going to omit the eucalyptus so that it's more spread out within my wreath. Also, don't be afraid to use these sort of pieces where some of the branch is exposed. A large portion of your bundles will be covered by additional bundles as you work to create your wreath. So these spots in your branches that may look bare to you right now, they'll be this great way to add bulk to your wreath, but they won't be noticeable the further you get into constructing your wreath, as they'll be covered up by additional bundles. So use every last piece that you have available. So I'm going to gather these pieces, hold them with my thumb, and then attach them to the wreath form. Now, you can certainly keep on angling your bundles outward, but I know for me, every once in a while, I like to angle one on the inside so that the middle of my wreath doesn't feel too bare. Okay, there we have it, the early beginnings of a wreath. And it hasn't even been that hard, am I right? So now I'm going to keep attaching more bundles. I'm going to keep attaching them as we have been doing, and I want you to do the same. So go ahead and crank out some holiday tunes, grab your favorite cozy drink, and get to work on your wreath. Meet me back here when you have just enough space on your wreath form for 1 or maybe 2 more bundles. And I'll show you how we'll attach those so that your wreath is finished. Okay, so now we're at the end, and hopefully you've gotten to this point where you have just enough room for one, maybe two more bundles. Now, if I place my last bundle on top, it's going to leave the mechanics of this wreath exposed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my bundle at the same attachment point that I've been using for all of my other bundles so far, but I'm going to gently lift up the stems of what would be my first original bundle. Now, by layering these evergreens underneath, I can attach this last bundle while keeping the actual mechanics of the wreath hidden. Okay, once I attach that, now I can finally snip the excess wire. I'm going to snip the wire. You can flop your wreath over, and I'm just going to make sure that that wire gets firmly attached to my wreath form. There's no rhyme or reason, just wrap it around a few times. Make sure everything's secure. And then you can either tuck it in somewhere, or you can cut off the extra if you have an extra long tail on there. And there you have it, a fun festive wreath that will look great hanging on your door all winter long.
Now, this wreath, it certainly looks finished to me just as is. But if you want to add a bit of flair, feel free to add a bow or wire in some festive pine cones. You really do have all sorts of options to make this your one-of-a-kind type creation.
And that's all there is to it. Your wreath is complete and ready to hang on your door. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I've certainly had a fun time hanging out and wreathing with all of you. I hope that you've had a relaxing and enjoyable time as well. What I truly love about these type of experiences is that not only do you walk away with a great piece of holiday decor, but more importantly, you walk away with a new skill of wreath making. You know, it's something that can become a fun tradition that you do with your friends and your family year after year to sort of get you in the holiday spirit. Now, I would love to see what you've created today. If you share photos of your masterpiece on social, I'd love it if you tag us, Two Sisters Flower Farm, so that I can see your stuff and so that we can see what everyone in the Two Sisters community is creating and designing during this holiday wreath season. Let me finish this video by saying that I am so grateful that you've allowed us to be a part of your holiday season. From all of us here at Two Sisters Flower Farm, let me just say thank you, and we hope you enjoy a safe and blessed holiday season this year.